I love world building and character design, especially when the creators are able to embed well thought out design and layers in their world and characters with deep history, mechanics, and lore akin to our own reality. And a project that's been doing this for over 2 decades that is constantly evolving with each phase is that of the virtual band, Gorillaz. Born from a collaboration of musician Damon Albarn and artist Jamie Hewlett, Gorillaz is a virtual band created in 1998. The band consists of 4 fictional characters: frontman and keys player 2D, bassist Murdoc Nichols, drummer Russell Hobbs, and guitarist Noodle, with their music style being known for its variety and genre blending, with influences from many different types of music, but most notably from hip-hop, reggae, electronic, and pop. It's Gorillaz is not so easily defined or boxed in by one type of genre or sound. With each album or phase, they don't just evolve their sound, but also their character design and lore. Fans have come to love and expect with each Gorilla phase, the design and characters evolve and change as they don't stay stagnant like other fictional characters do, but change and evolve through periods of their lives similar to us. This gives fans and audiences something that we hardly ever see with fictional characters: evolution. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, and focus on going over Gorillaz' main phases, analyzing the characters' evolution of their fashion, artwork of the phase, and their character design. I will slightly also touch on the evolution of their music and lore with each phase, but that's not the primary focus of this video. For this, I will be focused on the design and visual aspects of the characters and phases. I want to clarify that I am not a day one or long-term fan of Gorillaz and know everything about their dense and expansive lore, so there will be gaps in my knowledge, and this video shouldn't be considered a breakdown of their entire lore. But if you're interested in that, Self-Titled Productions has made several amazing breakdown videos of the band's phases and the backstory, so I highly recommend checking out his videos if you're interested in that. But with all that little housekeeping done, let's talk about phase 1, Gorillaz. Gorillaz' self-titled debut studio album was released in 2001, marking a genre-bending journey that blended trip-hop, dub, alt-rock, and hip-hop into a cohesive yet eclectic album. Famous tracks like Clint Eastwood showcased the fusion of Damon Albarn's melodies and rap verses from Dale the Funky Homo Sapien, while songs like 19200 embraced a lo-fi pop sound. 5-4 and M1A1, my personal favorites, highlighted the album's production, enhancing its genre collage with atmospheric textures, eerie samples, and a mix of organic and electronic instrumentation. As the debut of the band's sound and visual style, the more cartoonish and punk aesthetics held a strong presence, which was noticeable in both traditional and non-traditional media in the late 90s and early 2000s. Character artist Jamie Hewlett created a multimedia experience that felt both futuristic and grounded in the millennial disillusionment of the time. What's instantly noticeable about the band's first phase is their visual and character design, which drew heavy from the punk and hip-hop styles and fashion of the era. With its irreverence towards societal norms, authority, and the cookie-cutter visual style of other bands of the time, Phase 1 embodied and perfectly incorporated that mentality into its design. The surreal edge, mixing cartoon exaggeration with realistic detailing and backgrounds, brought the group's aesthetics to life. The designs emphasized disheveled appearances, streetwear, and an irreverent attitude. I think Noodle has my favorite design of this phase. Sporting a pilot-style helmet, a sometimes striped long-sleeve shirt, and sneakers or combat boots, Noodle's Phase 1 design reflects her youthful, punk-inspired aesthetic. Hewlett drew inspiration from his earlier work on Tank Girl as well as early 2000s Japanese street fashion and subcultures, which blended punk edge with quirkiness. Stuart Potts, or 2D, usually rocks simple long-sleeve shirts with baggy jeans or pants during Phase 1. Hewlett took heavy inspiration from British punk aesthetics as well as skate culture, underground zines, and indie bands of the time. The usual slightly disheveled look of 2D reflects the anti-establishment ethos of punk and grunge culture. However, 2D's thin, tall stature, his Two 8-ball fractured eyes and vibrant blue hair are the most iconic and eye-catching aspects of his design, making him look slightly intimidating, embodying the look for a frontman of the band. Hailing from Brooklyn and a hip-hop hard man, Russell Hobbs and his aesthetic and design reflect the style of urban and hip-hop scenes with baggy clothes, sneakers, and street culture influences. Russell's rounded features and exaggeration were probably influenced by blending Western and Japanese art styles, which Hewlett has claimed his admiration and respect for. Russell's tragic background and being possessed by the spirits of his dead friends who were killed in a drive-by give him his iconic white eyes. Also applied to his design is him having a more serious demeanor and his attire being more grounded and streetwise. Being the safety net, Russell feels like the linebacker and true defender of the band. But we of course can't forget the satanist and Nazi dressing bassist Murdoc Nichols, who was the original founder of the Gorillaz band. Usually depicted wearing a gray or black t-shirt, an upside down cross, and a tight leather pants, Murdoc's design also includes his signature spiky black hair, a broken nose, yellowed sharp teeth, and an iconic greenish skin tone. Like the Hulk, his skin tone becomes greener over time, but even in phase 1, the slight green tint makes him stand out amongst his bandmates. Murdoc's wardrobe and demeanor draw from grungy punk rock aesthetics, reflecting his inherently rebellious energy and devil-may-care attitude. In a 2017 interview with Juxtapoz magazine, Hewlett mentioned that Murdoc is loosely based on Damon Albarn, but I wouldn't be surprised if some inspiration also came from guitarist Keith Richards, as both share a wild, chaotic, and self-destructive nature. The art during this phase showcased bold, exaggerated character designs with angular lines, sharp features, and dynamic poses that conveyed each member's attitude and individuality. Hewlett's promotional art during this period was rich in texture with a hand-drawn, purposeful, rough quality that added to its raw, rebellious charm. His use of graffiti-like details and urban decay in the backgrounds created an immersive, chaotic world that complemented the music. Phase 1 was very crucial in setting the tone for the band's sound and visuals. Each character's personality and visual design showcased a clear and notable vision that carried through, evolving further in the band's second phase. Phase 2, Demon Days. I think this is the album where I first became truly aware of Gorillaz, with the Feel Good Inc. song being used in the 2005 Apple iPod commercial, and later seeing the iconic music video while browsing the music section of Comcast On Demand. I remember really being into the characters' designs due to my love and upbringing of comic books. To me, Demon Days is where it feels like Gorillaz really found their groove, taking the chaotic energy of the first album and refining it into something sharper and more cohesive. It's a mix of moody, bass-heavy beats and lush, layered production that leans into trip-hop, funk, and alt-rock vibes. You've got dark and atmospheric tracks like Kids with Guns and El Mañana that feel cinematic, alongside bangers like Feel Good Inc. and Dare that are straight up iconic. The album's production is more polished, but it never loses Gorillaz' inherent experimental edge. In a sense, it's just a little more mature. This evolution and maturity are also reflected in the band's characters' designs. Hewlett's work and visuals for the band's second phase feels less cartoony, transitioning from the heavier line weight on phase 1's characters to a slicker, more dynamic range for phase 2. The characters' features and clothing are given more detail with refined lighting that highlights and shadows their hair, clothing, the characters' facial, and more intimate features. There's a stronger visual focus on 2D's more haggard looks, Murdoc's even greener and more sinister appearance, Noodle growing up, and Russell remaining a powerhouse. The designs have more grit and maturity, matching the album's heavier themes. Let's take a deeper look at my personal favorite, 2D, and his look during phase 2. In this phase, 2D appears more tired, jagged, and sometimes downright battle damaged. His casual, borderline apathetic wardrobe reflects both his internal and external struggles. For example, in the poster for the band's Respect False Icons campaign, look at the detail Hewlett imbues in 2D. Scars, stitches, and bruises all across his body that are juxtaposed with his crooked smile and a sleeveless military jacket. What's really cool about this phase is seeing how Noodle growing up affects her style, which now reflects her found family in the band. During phase 1, Noodle's design and style were heavily influenced by late 90s and early 2000s Harajuku streetwear that blended playful, punk, and sporty aesthetics with a distinctly casual and rebellious vibe. This worked well with her being the youngest of the group, embodying youthful rebellion. Noodle's fashion in phase 2 reflects her evolving persona as the guitarist and a symbol of quirky coolness in the band. While still influenced by Japanese street fashion and punk aesthetics, she incorporates military-inspired elements. Her wardrobe now featuring military jackets, striped tops, shorts, and chunky boots that give her a punk military chic vibe. This evolution aligns with the darker themes of the album, with her utilitarian pieces complementing the apocalyptic, battle-ready undertones. While all the characters evolve slightly in this phase, it's particularly noticeable in Noodle's design. The art of this phase is more detailed, showing Hewlett's mastery of the characters in their world while tying it to ours. Some of my favorite pieces from this phase are the ones where Hewlett brings these characters into our world, posing with their creators, recording in real-world studios, and existing in tangible locations. These showcase Hewlett's skill in rendering the characters with such detail in lighting and shadows that they feel grounded in reality. It reminds me of the animation in films like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Space Jam, where the integration of characters and real-world elements were seamless. Let's take a look at one of my favorite pieces of this phase, that being the cover art for Russell's Roadkill mixtape. Look at Russell's visible focus on the mixing and mastering process, Noodle tuning her guitar or working on a riff, to even Mike the monkey smoking and vibing out to the music. All of it helping and framing this as a candid shot taken during the creation of the album. This making the characters feel so real, having a real world familiarity as we've seen other musicians and artists and candids during the creative process just like this. There's also this like really cool pig who's wearing a fez. I think this is Russell's pet pig who isn't really shown before or after this phase, but like a pig wearing a fez is pretty cool, I think. Uh, I need to work on better cohesion. In phase 2, Hewlett expanded the character's world in a way that made them feel more real, like a dysfunctional band from a dystopian world. Like Albarn with the music, Hewlett focused on giving the designs and characters more depth and detailed layers. The point being, this album and the visual look of this phase solidified Gorillaz as iconic. Phase 3, Plastic Beach. With the success of Phase 2 making Gorillaz a mainstay, if there was any period in Gorillaz history that could be considered their most promising, this was it. But the reality was a little trickier than that. Plastic Beach was more of a concept album focusing on themes of environmental decay and overconsumerism, with the album's title and backdrop being a fictional island made of oceanic debris and pollution. In this album, the band diverges from their earlier lo-fi, trip-hop, and punk rock aesthetics, embracing a more polished electronic production that incorporates orchestral arrangements and synth-heavy textures while retaining their hip-hop beats. Standout tracks like On Melancholy Hill offer a dreamy, somber tinged synth-pop sound with a haunting but catchy lead melody that is bound to get stuck in your head. The song Stylo, a pulsating synth track, blends funk and features unforgettable vocals from Bami Womack and Mos Def. The album also had a long and rich roster of collaborators. While Damon Albarn's vocals and fingerprints are all over the album and its sound, the featured artists often take center stage for the vocals. While the album was acclaimed for its sound and ambition, among the fanbase it sparked mixed reactions. Some appreciated the glossy production and experimentation, while others yearned for the grittier, bolder, and more straightforward appeal of the group's earlier sounds. While Plastic Beach is not my favorite album from the band, like the fan base, my appreciation for it and its sound has warmed up over time, and I can appreciate it now for what it is. While the overall sound isn't my cup of tea, the visuals and style are the biggest highlights of this phase for me. As in previous phases, Hewlett's visual work adapts to Albarn's sound. Long gone were the characters' grunge, streetwear, and punk aesthetics. Now the characters adopting a visual and wardrobe style that matches the album's nautical, dystopian, and eco-conscious themes. With Murdoc truly being in his full villain era, his design is grittier and more chaotic. His skin is even more noticeably green, accompanied by long, razor-like nails, emphasizing his villainous and toxic persona. His disheveled appearance and devilish grin, paired with his signature pentagram necklace and tattered boat captain's hat, solidify his self-appointed role as the band leader with a pirate-like aesthetic. Due to exposure to pollutions in the ocean, Russell has the biggest change in this phase.
Boo this man!
Okay, I know, it's a bad joke. I'm sorry.
Everyone, boo this nigga!
I'm sorry. Having grown to an enormous size, Russell's outfit and visual design were simplified, typically consisting of a white tank top and pants that emphasizes brute strength and casual demeanor despite his size. While more minimal, Russell maintains his calm, introspective personality, which perfectly juxtaposes with his imposing figure. Russell feels more like a force of nature in this design, with his glowing eyes often adding to the mystique of his transformation. He gives off the vibe of the Iron Giant, in my opinion. Believing Noodle to be dead after the El Manata incident, Murdoc replaced her with a cyborg version. This cyborg Noodle serves as Murdoc's bodyguard, and her design perfectly fits the aesthetic. Cyborg Noodle is the only member who retains an element of style from previous phases. Her design incorporates a sleek, military-style jacket or bodysuit that emphasizes her mechanical and weaponized nature, evoking influences from Terminator 2 Judgment Day, in my opinion. Hewlett's expressions for Cyborg Noodle are interesting. Her face is often cold and expressionless, or mirrors Murdoc's mischievous grin and snarling smirks, adding to her heartless and robotic design. In additional artwork for this phase, Cyborg Noodle is seen attached to numerous wires and cords that align in a visual design that reflects dystopian robotic futurism aesthetics and mannerisms. When the original Noodle appears in the music video for On Melancholy Hill, her design is portrayed as more mature, with a sleek, streamlined look compared to her previous phases. Her features are sharper and more defined, juxtaposing her youthful earlier appearances and highlighting Murdoc's attempt to replicate her youth in Cyborg Noodle. She wears a form-fitting black and red sailor-style bodysuit, giving her a futuristic yet nautical vibe that aligns with the Plastic Beach aesthetic. A key feature of her design in this phase is the Oni-inspired mask she wears. In Japanese culture, Oni masks symbolize strength, power, and protection. This additional ties to her cultural roots and lore while adding depth to her character. In the context of Gorillaz' story and lore, the Plastic Beach phase represents the lowest and roughest time in 2D's life. During this phase, 2D's design takes on a noticeable darker and more subdued tone, reflecting the personal torment inflicted by Murdoc. His eyes alternate between his normal black sockets and empty white orbs similar to Russell's. Regardless of the color, Hewlett emphasizes 2D's distress and loss of agency, particularly through his hollow eyes. The detail in 2D's face are striking, from noticeable bruises from Murdoc's physical abuse to the gauntness and fatigue that give him a haunted look. Unlike Murdoc's more flamboyant outfits, 2D's clothing is more utilitarian and functional than reflecting any of his normal personal style. While it does align with the album's nautical theme and aesthetics, it's just another design layer that reinforces his role as Murdoc's prisoner than a performer. But we can't keep talking about the Plastic Beach phase without going into detail on what I think was an essential moment in design that would have ripple effects in the band's future phases. The music video for Stylo marked a significant evolution in the visual design of Gorillaz, blending their animated personas with live action elements for the first time in a fully narrative driven setting. While the characters have been rendered in CGI before, such as in their 2006 Grammy performance with Madonna, Stylo introduced a new photorealistic 3D aesthetic that solidified the band's ethos of exploring new mediums. Murdoc 2D and Cyborg Noodle were brought into a 3D space that maintained their original designs but showcased detailed textures, lighting, and movement, giving them a tangible presence in the physical world. This integration of CGI and live action elements symbolized a bold step for Gorillaz at the time, blurring the lines between fiction and reality in their storytelling. The hyper stylized cinematic aesthetic, complete with lens flares, dynamic camera angles, and action choreography, amplify the tension and energy of the video. With the inclusion of Bruce fucking Willis as a bounty hunter interacting with the animated characters, it helped further highlight the surreal juxtaposition. Stylo not only expanded the creative possibilities for the band, but also laid the groundwork for future phases, where the use of 3D would continue to evolve and redefine the boundaries of music and visual art of Gorillaz. Looking at additional artwork and visuals for the phase, there was a clear focus on nautical imagery. The last but important aspect that I would like to shine more light on comes from the title of the album itself, The Plastic Beach. Designed by Hewlett and built by Asylum FX, the 3-meter high model and its accessories were photographed from different angles in a water tank to promote the album. This resulted in 4 different album covers showcasing the island at various times of day with contrasting lighting. The night versions are my personal favorites that highlight the surreal colors and lighting that invoke the same sense of awe as seeing Hogwarts for the first time in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone did. The model is vibrant and surreal with a textured pink core resembling coral or rock. This loud pink contrasts beautifully with the surrounding blue water and lush green palm trees, adding to the fantastical design. The use of real water reflects the vibrant colors and lights of the island, creating layers of depth and realism while playing off the dichotomy between nature and artificial man-made plastic. The island's environment includes features like a lighthouse and small buildings scattered across the lower sections, enhancing the sense of a lived-in yet isolated location and reinforcing Plastic Beach as a dystopian paradise. Above the island base sits the modernistic multi-level studio mansion with sleek white walls and curved organic architecture. Its glass panel windows and geometric shapes lend a sense of refinement, juxtaposed with the chaotic elements of the island below. Surrounding the mansion are whimsical details like mushroom trees, oversized palm trees, and brightly colored props, contributing to the model's playful yet otherworldly feel while encapsulating the album's themes. The mixed reception of Plastic Beach created not only a rift within the fan base, but also between the creators themselves. After years of collaboration, Hewlett reportedly felt sidelined during the Plastic Beach phase. While music is essential to Gorillaz, Hewlett's distinct visual contributions were less central than in previous phases, which probably led to understandable frustrations. This rift was compounded by an intense work schedule, an ever-tight budget, and the pressure of sustaining a multimedia project, ultimately taking a toll on their relationship. These tensions led to an informal hiatus after release of The Fall in 2011. Fortunately, Albarn and Hewlett eventually reconciled, rekindling their shared vision for Gorillaz. In 2017, they released the highly anticipated Phase 4 of the project, marked by a renewed collaboration and thematic focus.
Press a button to begin.
Phase 4, Humanz. Phase 4 Gorillaz delivered a frantic energy with an eclectic soundscape that blended electronic, hip-hop, dancehall, and funk. The album is characterized by dark apocalyptic undertones with a loose theme of a party at the end of the world. The production is heavy on synths, driving beats, and fragmented melodies, creating a chaotic atmosphere that feels urgent and disorienting. This phase saw the band leaning to a more politically charged and socially conscious narrative, reflecting the global unrest of the time while maintaining the eclectic, genre-bending sound that defined their earlier work. Like Plastic Beach, Humanz garnered both admiration and criticism from fans and critics alike. While some praised its ambition, concept, and sonic experimentation, others felt the album lacked the strong narrative cohesion and melodic hooks characterized of earlier Gorillaz projects. I agree to a degree, that rhymed, but there are still a handful of songs from this album that I enjoy and revisit. The political themes reflecting the Trump-era zeitgeist divided listeners even more. Some appreciated its commentary while others found it overly didactic or emotionally distant. It should be noted that socially and political undertones were always present in previous albums, but perhaps their overt nature in this album is what turned some listeners off. While Humanz is not my favorite album cohesively, it is one of my favorite phases visually. The small hiatus felt worth it as the designs and visuals Hewlett delivered during this phase are nothing short of amazing. In this phase of Gorillaz, Hewlett reduced the reliance on heavier outlines and strong line weights, a defining feature of earlier designs. Instead, the characters are rendered with softer and almost painterly shading and detail, giving them a more three-dimensional appearance while maintaining a cartoonish essence. The Saturn Barnes music video is a prime example of this look. The color and shading of the characters heavily rely on bold gradients and highlights that add depth without the need for a strong line weight. It's a subtle detail, but the expert use of textures and shading on elements like Noodle's fuzzy jacket, the folds in 2D and Russell's clothing, and the shading on facial features and expressions give the characters a softer and more refined look. All of this contributes to making the phase feel more polished, aligning with contemporary trends in illustration at the time. Emphasizing form, light, shadow, and color, the design shift brings the characters closer to a blend of comic and animated realism while still preserving their iconic personality. This phase aesthetics and design majorly blend the 2D characters with heightened photographic and collage elements, bringing the members even closer to reality by incorporating hyperreal textures, real-world backgrounds, models, and tangible lighting. I think this incorporation of photography and collage in Humanz is particularly striking in its ability to merge fantasy and reality. The contrast between the characters and the photographic elements they interact with creates a dynamic interplay that feels fresh and experimental. One of my favorite pieces from this phase is the artwork of Noodle in Numero magazine. In their 64th issue, Numero featured an interview with Noodle, who talked about the events of Plastic Beach and what she and the band had been doing since their disappearance, lore-wise. Hewlett worked closely with Numero as the art director, focusing on the visuals. Working with brands like Balenciaga, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and Burberry, the artwork showcases Noodles in ways we haven't really seen her before, portraying her with a stronger sense of fashion. Hewlett and his team maintained the phase's consistency by blending 2D artwork with fashion photographic elements and graphics while experimenting with collage techniques reminiscent of punk collage and the 20th century Dada art movement. The cut and paste aesthetic with its slightly rough and refined unfinished look adds subversion and distinctness to the artwork. Noodle's dynamic poses draw the eye to examine the details, from the real photographed clothing she wears to her realistic 2D design, leaving viewers uncertain where reality ends and fantasy begins. My favorite from this set is the bird shot, which captures such a dynamic pose with inherent movement in its composition. The extreme contrast of the Dada-inspired white background and the collage of birds makes Noodle stand out even more. The perfectly rendered lighting highlights small details like the shimmer in her hair, leaving me unsure where the real photograph ends and the illustration begins. It's the kind of piece I would love to see in a modern art museum or as a large print hanging in my living room. Like, I want that now. Like, I want it hung up, like, now. In this phase, Hewlett and his team also experimented with 3D design, with 3D versions of the characters appearing in some of their music videos, specifically Sleeping Powder and Strobe Light. While expertly produced, the 3D versions of the characters are definitely a product of their time. To me, they already feel a bit dated, resembling VTubers, which isn't my favorite style. I prefer the normal 2D animation style seen in Saturn Bar's music video and the commercials the band did for Jaguar and Pandora. Of course, I can't wrap up Phase 4 without discussing the album's cover art, which encapsulates the album's themes and story so effectively. The Humanz artwork feels like a natural progression and evolution of the band's second LP, Demon Days, utilizing the same 4-square portrait composition from Demon Days, which I didn't know was heavily inspired by the Beatles' Let It Be album. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Each square and portrait employs a stark, high-contrast color palette with deep shadows and bright highlights. While the characters appear rendered in 3D, I believe they were actually photorealistic paintings to create highly detailed illustrations. The shading, textures, and compositions are polished to emphasize the human side of the band. There's also possible inspiration in the members' portraits, taking inspiration from other real-world musicians. Russell resembling Biggie Smalls, 2D evoking a young David Bowie, Noodle channeling Bjork, and Murdoc reminiscent of Liam Gallagher. The cover art and accompanying visuals of this phase parallel the album's blend of genres and its exploration of a fragmented, chaotic, polarized world. This approach gave this phase a raw sense of reality and real-world presence while still maintaining the distinct eccentricity that has always defined Gorillaz, making it one of my favorite phases due to its dynamic design work and evolution. Phase 5, the Now Now. Usually referred to as 2D's album, the Now Now had a more stripped-back, introspective sound compared to the stacked, collaborative chaos of Humanz. The album heavily leaned into synth-pop, funk, and new wave influences, culminating in a dreamy, melancholic atmosphere through the production and lyrics. While Damon's vocals weren't the main focus in Humanz, in the Now Now, Albarn's airy vocals and shimmering synth-driven melodies are, making it feel more focused. In the lower Phase 5, the band's sound is heavily affected by the temporary absence of Murdoc, who is replaced by Ace. Yes, the one from the Powerpuff Girls.
Hey kid, watch out! Whoop, sorry! Whoop, sorry! Whoop, sorry! Whoop, sorry! Whoop, sorry!
Murdoc's absence shifts the spotlight towards 2D, the band's vocalist whose creative expression takes center stage, making it his album. The narrative shift aligns with the album's tone and the phase's design work, reflecting a quieter, more contemplative chapter in the Gorillaz saga while still maintaining the band's signature eccentricity. This phase marks a return to an even more polished finesse in the characters and design motives. A defining characteristic of the Now Now phase is the heightened detail and refinement of the visuals. In previous phases, Hewlett's art style played more with grittier, looser renderings, while here he pivots to clean, stylized line work with intricate detailing that we saw the beginnings of in Phase 4. The overall look for the Now Now phase is light, breezy, and distinctly retro-inspired, taking cues from 80s and early 90s fashion. Gorillaz lean into a mix of vintage casual wear, sporty street style, and neon accents, really diverging from the darker, dystopian tones of previous phases and embracing a more colorful summer aesthetic. Hewlett showcases this in the members in different ways. 2D seems to embody a more relaxed vibe, sporting loose-fitting tops or pastel shirts with denim pants and sneakers, sometimes also wearing vintage 80s inspired jackets that reflect a Californian coastal vibe. His appearance in the Humility video is a highlight, with this being the happiest we've seen 2D and his design reflects it. He wears a white cap sleeve shirt that matches his eye color and bright green shorts that perfectly contrast with his bright blue hair. The combination of live action and 2D character animation works seamlessly, with smooth animation that keeps 2D's iconic design while adding precise details that make him feel part of this world. One of my favorite details in the video is when 2D skates past Jack Black, the camera physically reacts to him and the basketball flying by. Hewlett, the animation team, and editors give him weight in the animation, selling the illusion of him existing in the real world. With this being 2D's album, the design pays him more attention, letting him shine and take up more space. A subtle aspect I love about Gorillaz is seeing how Noodle grows up and changes across phases while still keeping her inherent traits. Noodle maintains her trend-setting style in the now, but softens her overall look, incorporating elements of Japanese streetwear inspired by designers like Comme des Garçons. Her outfits often feature crop tops, colorful platform sneakers, and patterned high-waisted pants that show off and accents her long, beautiful legs that make me... Sorry, got distracted there. Anyway, with the combination of her short, choppy bob that changes colors, they complete Noodle's mainstay and youthful and fashion-forward appeal that is fresh and energetic. The most laid-back member of the group, Russell, adopted a blend of vintage athletic wear and casual styles, often wearing oversized t-shirts, tracksuits, or tank tops paired with comfortable sneakers and bold headwear. This feels like a modernization of what Russell's previous phase has always included. Temporary bassist Ace keeps the band's edge that Murdoc once filled, with Ace retaining a cartoonish villain vibe. Wearing black leather jackets, sunglasses, and green tone accents, he fits seamlessly into the Gorillaz world. I especially love the work on the Now album sleeve, where Ace faces us in the foreground. Small details like the back of his jacket including an Ace symbol, the brass knuckles in his back pocket, and the small little mug with the face of who I think is Little Arto from the Green Gang are all just eye candy to me. They give him a greaser aesthetic that fits the band's style, keeping the needed edge, ne'er-do-well vibe, and toughness Murdoc once brought to the table. Ace feels like a match made in heaven, and I wish he appeared more in Gorillaz lore, or I would love to see him return in some capacity in future phases. The color palette for the Now aligns with this minimalist yet vibrant tone, the art leaning into bold but subdued hues. Cool blues, deep purples, and bright neon accents. These colors emphasize the hypnotic, introspective qualities of the album while maintaining a modern aesthetic that feels clean and cohesive, especially highlighted in the music visualizers. A reoccurring visual motive throughout the Now is that of circular motion, which invokes a hypnotic, dreamlike quality consistent with the album's introspective sound. The album title logo is specifically designed to utilize and highlight clean, concentric trim circles. It features two overlapping circles with the letters O, which help create a sense of unity, flow, and repetition. The circles' bold colors and simplicity contrast with their warped, hypnotic edges. Circles inherently evoke continuity and fluid motion, paralleling 2D's lyrics on emotional experiences, loneliness, and escapism. The use of circles in Phase 5 visuals often acts as framing devices, subtly guiding the audience's focus. This phase's visualizers incorporated spiraling effects, pulsating rings, and rhythmic rotations, amplifying the trance-like hypnotic energy of the music. I think the circular motion mirrors the sonic structure of the music, which songs featuring patterned synth lines and looping bass grooves. The hypnotic circular imagery also adds a sense of calm and meditative repetition. Circles that spin, warp, and pull the viewer into a context of motion that is soothing. The color palette of the added graphic elements in the visualizers adds layers of vibrancy and glow, pulling the viewers into the center of the frame as though they're falling deeper into a visceral visual trance. The circular visual motive in the Now is a simple but masterful design choice that aligns with the album's visuals, sound, and themes. It creates a sense of motion, repetition, and calm while acting as a symbolic portal into the introspective, hypnotic world. The visual style and design that Hewlett brings to Phase 5 feels like a nostalgic yet modern reinvention, focusing on specific detailing, minimalism, and bright, clean, summery design aspects that mirrors the sonic shift of the album. This phase is one of my favorites due to my personal taste and gravitation towards more colorful palettes and specific, minimalistic design choices that remind me of beloved comic book artists. Phase 5 highlights the maturity of the Gorillaz art direction while retaining their iconic charm and individuality. Phase 6, The Song Machine. In Phase 6, with the album The Song Machine, Gorillaz do what they do best. Create an eclectic sound palette, blending genres and sounds into a cohesive experimental collection. Like Humanz, The Song Machine served as a collaborative playground, with each track showcasing a variety of influences stemming from the album's featured artists. Shifting between funk, alt-rock, hip-hop, reggae, and electronic, The Song Machine embodies the band's embedded genre-bending and boundary-pushing ethos. Due to the album's versatility, it has a playlist feel, with tracks being less tethered to a central theme and more reflective of spontaneous collaboration and creativity, which makes this one of my favorite Gorillaz albums, but not just sonically, also in the phase's visuals and design. Looking at the design and visuals from Phase 6, it feels like an even more polished extension of Phase 5. With The Song Machine releasing only 2 years after the Now Now, it makes sense. The members' fashion design and inspiration in this phase are more flamboyant and the most colorful of all the phases, which is why I think I gravitate towards it so much. Their outfits and accessories take inspiration from streetwear, punk, and haute culture. During this time, Gorillaz were featured on many magazine covers, showcasing incredible fashion and design work. Some of my favorites include the covers of Clash, Mix Mag, 1883 Magazine, and Knack Focus. Small details stand out, like Noodle's dress on the cover of Clash, which draws design inspiration from Japanese shibori and textile artwork. Like the album's sound, the colorful fashion design is richly varied. A specific look I like to highlight is from their music video for Strange Times. Heavily inspired by a mix of retro sci-fi aesthetics and the band's playful, surrealist style, the video features the band members on the moon donning individual colorful spacesuits that clearly pay homage to the ones in Stanley Kubrick's 1968 film 2001: Space Odyssey. 2D wears hot pink, Noodle sky blue, Russell saturated orange, and Murdoc, of course, green. The suit's vibrant colors and exaggerated designs align with Gorillaz' identity. Each suit includes exaggerated proportions, quirky patches, and decorative elements that blend functionality with absurdity. The design doesn't aim for realism, but embraces the surreal, with occasional visual distortions or glowing accents that fit the dreamlike atmosphere of the video. The suits serve as a visual metaphor for the whimsical, otherworldly nature of the song itself. The suits in the video appear as 3D renderings, while the characters' faces inside them are 2D animated. The mix of mediums and visual styles is a familiar territory for Hewlett, creating layered, dynamic animation and giving viewers a surreal experience. Speaking of animation, Phase 6 hands down holds my favorite animation style and look for these characters. Defined by the character's traditional 2D animation with sharp lines, bold colors, and expressive features, the style stays true to Hewlett's vision while incorporating CGI elements like textured backgrounds and objects. These additions create a layered, immersive feel. Several videos also feature live-action cameos from the album's collaborative artists, seamlessly blending with the animated characters, reminiscent of the original Space Jam. The attention to detail, especially in the lighting and contrast of dramatic highlights and shadows on the characters, adds to the immersion. The retention of the iconic 2D designs with a smooth, hand-drawn animation quality mirroring Hewlett's artwork always leaves me in awe. The animation is fluid, expressive, and exaggerated, amplifying the characters' personas. The video for The Lost Chord is a particular highlight. Moments like Murdoc ripping off the boogeyman's mask, Noodle falling out of Russell's mouth, 2D vomiting up the whale that tormented him at Plastic Beach, and Murdoc's expressive face when he thinks he's abandoned on the sinking island are all animated so well by production company The Line and directed by Hewlett himself. These moments had me rewinding countless times just to experience them again. The videos incorporate the original scale model of the Plastic Beach Island, the animated characters, and live action footage of the artist Lee John as a sea monster, all seamlessly blended into the video without anything really feeling out of place. This approach feels like how the band should always be animated, and I can't see anyone doing it better in this style. The art direction from Hewlett during this phase still feels hand-drawn, but is complemented by a digital sheen, creating a great hybrid look. The characters' outfits are hyper-realistic, inspired by real-world references while still retaining their expressive poses and exaggerated facial expressions. The use of muted pastels contrasted with popping neons make this phase feel both nostalgic and forward-thinking, which carries over to secondary visuals and materials, from streaming platform covers to badges, sticker sheets, postcards, and tour materials. All of it tracks and follows the main visual style that Hewlett is going for in this phase. While I have an immense respect for Gorillaz Phase 1 and their alt-punk and hip-hop visual design roots, I gravitate towards this phase the most due to my love of dynamic colors and pastel palettes. There is so much charm and intentional rawness in Phase 1, but I love the look of Phase 6 the most because it feels like Hewlett and his team have reached the zenith of their design and production process, making this my favorite phase of Gorillaz. Phase 7, Cracker Island. Okay, we have finally come to Gorillaz' most recent phase. Well, at the time of me recording this. Even though this phase is still only a few years old, I think there's still a lot to break down. In Phase 7, Gorillaz pivoted towards a synth-heavy sound infused with disco, funk, and elements of dark pop. An album with prominent bass lines, punchy beats, and rich and glossy synths. Continuing the well-balanced features from the Song Machine, Cracker Island has a variety of collaborators like Thundercat, Stevie Nicks, Tame Impala, and Bad Bunny, all the while still maintaining the band's hallmarking genre-blurring ethos. The album's thematic landscape explores the ideas of cults, social alienation, and disillusionment in the digital age. Visually, Cracker Island continues the tradition of bold, surreal aesthetics. The narrative lore follows the band members as they create their own cult, all the while being ensnared by a neighboring cult, with themes of utopias and neon-lit dystopias dominating the art direction. In this phase, Hewlett leans heavily on using purples, dark blues, and pinks for color palettes in the band members' cult's primary colors. Looking at the wardrobe and character design on this phase, there's no doubt Hewlett has done proper research in contemporary cult attire and the reasons behind them. In history, cults have often used uniform attire to foster a sense of unity and a collective us versus them mentality among its members. The wearing of similar attire usually symbolizes a submission to the group's rhetoric and values to reduce individuality to emphasize conformity to the cult's beliefs and hierarchy. In the past phases, we have seen the members' personality and character designs also being reflected in their specific wardrobe design. During this Cracker Island phase, Hewlett finds a nice middle ground of the members keeping their character design while aligning with certain aspects of the cult's uniformity and visual looks. The band members all reflect the cult's main color theme in some way or form. Egomaniac and narcissist Murdoc works as the patriarch of the last cult, and his design in this phase aligns. As the leader of the cult, Murdoc usually dons long flowing religious robes with Pope issue headwear in the cult's colors to reflect his hierarchy. The long flowing robes with a structured collar and a pointed hood evokes imagery of medieval clergy and monastic garments. In addition of a bolded magnetic cinch waist, adds a layer of flamboyancy to Murdoc's garbs. Hewlett possibly took inspiration from traditional Catholic and Eastern Orthodox attire investments. Murdoc's pointed hood could also allude to monastic orders and cult aesthetics, which use religious iconography for hierarchy reinforcement and dramatic effect. Hewlett has a history of incorporating satire into his design, so Murdoc's design has a narrative and lore relevancy, but also may be a design choice by Hewlett to mock organized religion or cult-like fan bases in our current cultural zeitgeist. With all that being said, I think this is the most interesting Murdoc's design has been to me in all of the phases since his original debut. Always want to represent, Russell continues his love of streetwear and hip hop culture into his design. Russell's design in this phase continues his trend of sporting a simplified wardrobe, but still follows the phases in Coat's color palette. Russell usually wears a combination of the Coat's fuchsia color with white. Russell, who is known to wear hats, also dons a colorful, exaggerated version of a classic propeller beanie, which I think is, pretty cool. Looking at Noodle. Oh my gosh, she's so cute, I can't fucking stand it. Ugh. Looking at Noodle, she still embodies her fashion style and her being a fully mature adult, departing from her more tomboyish and alt-rock wardrobe to a more colorful and contemporary one. Hewlett gives Noodle design a colorful bob cut and eyeshadow that coincides with the coat's colors. I'm so serious, she's so fucking cute, I can't stand it. 2D is the only member who has contrast from the rest of the group in this phase. In this phase, 2D's color palette and design sometimes coincides with the group's and Coat's color palette, while also changing to align with the narrative story of this phase. Hewlett makes 2D's design and colors coincide with the neighboring Coat, the Forever Coat, and their blue color palette and motives as he becomes more acquainted with them. Mainly featured in the music videos for Cracker Island and Silent Running, 2D is designed in a tongue-in-cheek t-shirt reading "I am the Lamb" that pairs with his blue hair and circumstance of being a sacrifice for the Forever Coat. He also wears this Mickey Mouse star-inspired hat, which could be a piece that works with the themes of mockery and disillusionment in the digital age, or it just could be Hewlett wanting to make 2D a fun, silly hat just because, which tracks for both Hewlett and 2D, I guess. In the music videos, visualizers, and promotional ads, and even a really cool immersive performance in Times Square, for this phase, newer CG models and animations of the band members were utilized. Being a departure from their other 3D animation looks used in videos like Stylo, Do Your Thing, or Strobe Light, this time Hewlett brought in artist and director FX Gubby to help animate the characters and co-direct the videos. Utilizing Gorillaz' familiar visual style of blending 3D animation with live action elements, the band members are depicted with an enhanced depth and detail featuring hyper-realistic textures and lifelike movements. While this updated look for the characters in 3D are still relatively new, it does walk the line between stylization and hyper-realistic depiction fairly well, as compared to the animations in Stylo and Do Your Thing. While still great videos in their own rights, they tend to show its age and the point of animation limits during the time of their creation. With this look, Hewlett and FX Gabby find a really good balance that doesn't sacrifice details and movements of its characters in their animation. While only time will be able to tell how the animation in this phase holds up, I think it's an improvement and well-designed evolution of the characters in 3D that fares better than previous attempts in my opinion. A lot of secondary material and art was made for this phase in preparation and in promotion for the album. While I do see the irony and origins of the alt-punk rock band slowly morphing into what they used to criticize with brand deals, partnerships, and merchandise, I still find a lot of this work well designed. Utilizing this phase's 3D models and coat color palette, there's still a lot to love. I recommend checking out GorillazForBeginners.com for a more extensive look through the additional and detailed catalog of the material during this phase. As I wrap up this phase, the last important part I want to talk about and focus on is the design for the Last Coat's logo. In the Last Coat's logo, the central figure in the design is the demon Pazuzu, which has been used in the band's past phases, specifically during their second Demon Days phase. It gives the design a bold and chaotic touch. Surrounding Pazuzu are spiraling arrows that not only work as motion and hypnotic illusionary motives, but also reflects the band's dynamic nature and the constant push against stagnation, which is Gorillaz' embedded sense of constant evolution. In the alternative logo, Hewlett implements graphical electric bolts and stars radiating outwards surrounding the logo. Besides them just looking really fucking cool, I think they also work as showcasing the themes of creativity, energy, and interconnectedness that coincide with the collaborative and boundary-pushing spirit of Gorillaz. The combination of symmetrical patterns and distorted features creates a paradoxical harmonious tension between structure and chaos that reflects how Gorillaz navigates balance with constant change in design in each of their phases. Looking at all these design elements together to me shows that evolution is not just a natural process, but an active, vibrant force. And that constant evolution is what I think is so interesting about Gorillaz. In a world where we tend to hate endings and closure, wanting to stay in our comfort zone and adherence to the status quo, Gorillaz' design and music says and does otherwise. Making artwork you love with people you love while growing together is such a strong and essential aspect of the human experience that I think we tend to forget about due to overconsumption, distractions, and politics in life. But looking deeper into Gorillaz and their evolutionary design only confirmed to me that we are in a constant state of practice. And whether it's by a little or a lot, we should always be striving to constantly evolve. Or maybe I'm thinking too deeply and these are just fictional characters who look cool and make cool music. So that's it for me today on the evolutionary design of Gorillaz. Stay hydrated. Sorry if the audio was kind of weird during certain phases of the video. I'm trying something new out, and of course there comes growing pains with all that. So yeah, it's kind of funny. I started researching and writing this video months ago, but now there are like seedlings and speculations on what looks to be like the gearing up for phase 8. If they do release phase 8 this year, I may make another video analyzing that phase to calm and silence my completion anxiety. So subscribe and keep a lookout for that if that's your kind of thing. Let me know your favorite phase, character, and Gorillaz song below in the comments. It'll be fun for me to go through them and see if I agree or not. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe if that's your kind of thing. And I'll see you next time when I sit and talk about whatever I'm hyper fixated on at the moment. Peace.